McLaren are pretty good when they start. The Japanese Grand Prix felt somewhat like a Grand Prix, and Max Verstappen might be retiring. Let's jump into the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast.
Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Now here's a bald guy and some Indian.
Hey, how are you, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah. Good. I drank a lot on Saturday. I'm too old. Thankfully, I joined a new gym that has ice baths, and that kind of sorted me out for the most part this morning, so that helped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have an ice bath in the house, but the maintenance on it is too much. Like, it's one of the ones you have to fill up. It's not like a constant one.
Yeah.
So I find myself just too never bothered to go like buy ice packs and stuff. So I joined a gym that has one.
No,
and
ice
it's
bath
like,
is awesome.
Yeah. Now I can just jump in whenever. It's great. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So, let's begin. Before we do, we shouldn't do it usually, but again, the whole thing is going on in Iran and everything. So whatever I've read, there are people that are being affected right now. Because apparently there's whole shortages and everything has started happening. I mean, some of it is here in India as well. But if anyone is going through it, I hope things get better. But again, it's the moron in the White House and the other one.
Hey, in Trump we trust, right? He's just trying to bring the oil prices up so we can all win, because higher oil prices help everybody.
Exactly.
And good. Thankfully, youth. Formula One has already moved off it. So Formula One, as always, preemptive strikes.
Let's jump into Formula One then.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's break the tradition a bit. Let's start with so the Japanese Grand Prix race weekend. For you, the biggest winner. Who was the biggest winner of the Japanese Grand Prix?
Probably McLaren, because the two cars started and finished the race for the first time this year. And it turns out that, whenever Oscar Piastri starts a race in 2026, he ends up on the podium. So that's a good run for McLaren.
Imagine how good Lando is in that case.
Yeah. You could also say Alpine as well, I guess, because they beat Max Verstappen this weekend. So
everyone does apparently these days, isn't it?
We found out he's a Newy merchant, didn't we? But I guess we'll talk about that in a while.
100%. Yeah. He was always a Rob Marshall merchant.
Yeah.
Never forget that.
Never forget, yeah.
So I think in my case, the biggest winner, I'd say Kimi Antonelli.
Yep. That's a big one.
19 years of age. He should not be where he is right now. But something
youngest
right
person
now.
To lead a championship, right?
Youngest to lead a championship. If he ends up winning the championship, he will be the younger. He'll beat Vettel's record. But
so we don't want him to win the championship then.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't. In here, in these quarters, we are not cheering for Kimi Antonelli to win.
This is a Vettel podcast.
Yeah. In case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So the biggest loser of the Japanese Grand Prix in your view?
Lance Stroll, but that goes for every weekend, so I'll pick someone else.
You don't really have to talk about races in this case.
I mean, for me, it was Colapinto, but I don't want to talk about that either. I don't know who the biggest loser was. I don't know. Probably Honda.
Why? There are too many options.
Well, the thing is, I think every team weirdly had a good split of like someone who did really well, someone who was let down almost. Like nearly every single team.
Sort of, yeah.
Maybe there was one or two that weren't. But yeah, I think, I guess if you want the actual biggest loser of the weekend, it has to be Honda, right? Because their big claim to fame this weekend is they finished a race, like for the first time in 2026.
They only got lapped once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is weird, by the way. Just once they got lapped. But again, it was 37, 38 lap thing because after the first pit stop, right? So
poor Alonso got out of the car looking like Michael J. Fox, but that's a bad taste joke, so let's move on. Don't think about it. Move on. Move on.
Okay. Yeah. I think the biggest loser were the regulations, because behind the scenes, the level of suppression that is being going on when it comes to F1 and the way they're trying to suppress the messaging around these regulations.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, I mean, if we probably weren't that active on social media during the weekend, there are some random accounts that are popping up which are essentially trolling people who are criticizing these regulations. And
lovely.
Yeah, and first I thought it was just
The usual.
maybe one or two accounts just happens, but apparently it's happening a lot, and quite a few people pointed it out. I'm not saying it's necessarily the case, because even F1 fans are a bit dumb when it comes to these things, but maybe, who knows?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you know what F1 fans are like as well. I'm sure Mercedes fans think these regulations are fantastic. If you're an Antonelli fan, for example, you're going to love these regulations. If you're a Russell fan, you would have liked it for one race. But, you know, people do say crazy things. And if you're a Verstappen fan, even if you actually don't mind the racing, you're going to stand on the hill of like, this is the worst regulation set in history, because Verstappen will.
I don't think I am a Verstappen fan, but I am standing on the hill that this is the worst regulations that I have seen since I've been following the sport.
I agree.
Since early 21st century.
I agree. I will say that I do think like we are getting some... Oh, you there? Yeah. Sorry, it went for a second.
Yeah.
I will say, I still think like it's not as bad as it could be. I think it's pretty bad. Yeah. I think it's pretty bad. But like we did actually get some racing this weekend, you know, and F1's always artificial regardless. This is just artificial to the extreme, which is why it's the worst for me. Like this is as artificial as it's ever been. But I think the only saving grace here is because the cars are massively still underdeveloped, we at least do get some wheel-to-wheel racing still. Would I prefer it to be less artificial? Of course. But I don't know. The Japanese Grand Prix, of all the Grand Prix so far, felt like the most normal Grand Prix so far to me. Yeah. Just it felt like an actual F1 race, like not as artificial as before. Yeah. But that's, I think, just
except
because of the way...
crash.
That shows the worst of these regulations by far. Because that's not just entertainment, that's actual danger. Because if Behrman had have hit the back of Colapinto, something could have happened to my Colapinto, and I would have been very upset. So, but no, jokes aside, like that Formula One got very, very fucking lucky that someone wasn't gravely injured, all because they wanted Volkswagen into the sport. Like that's...
I don't think it's even...
That's the summary.
I don't think it's even related to just that.
I'm just saying that's the initial reason why they brought these regulations in. So, idiotic.
The kind of concessions that they were made.
Yeah.
It's... Okay, so let's jump into the new regulations as well first, because let's first talk about this thing and why Max's future is in jeopardy. So, why... The first thing is, what I've realized after having far too many discussions than is healthy on X with people, I don't think anyone has any fucking clue how a Formula One car works. And that was until 2025. We've entered 2026 and it's an entirely different paradigm. And a lot of fans, they have no clue what's going on, how a driver is honestly managing all these things, and what is the difference between where they are right now and where they were in 2025. So one of the first things which a lot of fans would not even be aware of, since it is a 50-50% split, 50% is your internal combustion and 50% is electric. That 50% electric is run by algorithm and machine learning, essentially. So
I think
consistently being updated.
The last one. Yeah. The software is doing most of the work.
Yeah, but as Lando pointed it out this weekend, he didn't even want to overtake Lewis when in the first occasion. It's just that his deployment was such he had to. He didn't have an option.
Yeah.
So essentially, a driver is essentially a passenger in that case.
This is what I was saying in China. I think everyone was under the illusion that like the driver was controlling this with the pedal, and it's like no, the algorithms are learning as you go around the track. So it's and like
it gets activated beyond a certain pressure.
Yeah, but, technically, I think actually it learns before they go round, which is what is even worse. It has like set deployments for each. Like once you start the race, I think it's locked into its mapping, so it has set deployments.
Changes
so the driver doesn't want to change anything. Yeah, but the driver doesn't understand the races.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the problem. So exactly what's happening here. And that's... So 50% of the power that a driver is using during the entire lap, it's not even controlled by him. And this is... So what? We are basically talking about 50% of the lap time not being controlled by the driver in that case?
Yeah, remove the driver, I think, is the obvious solution.
Exactly. That's
I don't like the drivers anyway, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, you want AI to take over everything.
This is a constructor's sport. It has been since 1974, and I think it's damn time everyone just accepts it.
But the highest paid resource continues to be the driver, and the highest
exactly. So remove them.
And the highest paid marketing tool on the basis of which the tickets are sold. Exactly. My point being, the main differentiator being the driver. It has continued to diminish through the years, but right now it's reached a point where, first of all, these cars are not enjoyable in any which way, and you can see. Leclerc has lashed out this weekend because the qualifying it's a joke. If you try to push the car a bit too much, you are losing time because of that. It's the same has been the case with, I think Albon talked about it. Carlos Sainz was very critical of the crash and how no one fucking wants to listen to the drivers. Lewis Hamilton has talked about. Lewis has said essentially that, first of all, we have no vote. So whatever we say, we can voice our opinion, but it holds zero value.
He wouldn't have said that if he qualified better, though. But anyway.
Yeah. But he did. And I think he was talking about the Ollie Beerman incident. The 22 drivers on the grid, they are unanimously against what's going on right now. And all of them have been, maybe 21 drivers, because George is supposed to be the head of the Grand Prix, whatever thing. And he hasn't said a word about the whole situation. And he should be. So it's George Russell and Carlos Sainz. These are the two representative or whatever they are, the leaders of the whole Grand Prix association, the driver association. And George hasn't said a word about what happened with Ollie Beerman. And he should be critical and talking about it more. But he isn't doing that, which is honestly a shame, because he usually tends to be very good and on point when it comes to these things. Carlos Sainz went.
I imagine Mercedes is quite ruthless on, like, we don't want anything
Toto
to change.
has his balls in his hand right now.
Yeah, it's going to be like, we don't want anything to change. And like during the last regulation set up until 24, like Red Bull and Verstappen were pretty quiet about most things as well, especially like the porpoising, for example, when drivers were complaining about their backs. But like they weren't too vocal about it. They were like, fix your fucking car, literally. So this is... Just to point out, like, as much as Russell should be talking, this tends to happen. The winning team and driver tend to be quite quiet about issues.
Yeah,
it's just part of Formula One.
Again, at the same time, Max was quite critical.
I don't agree with it, by the way, but
yeah, 100%. I know. But Max was quite critical in 2023 when the wheel-to-wheel racing started getting affected, because in a few races he said that we are continuing to go. I remember covering this thing because he said that we are going in this direction, and this is just the second year of these regulations, where we are seeing new appendages and new developments at the top, at the upper part of the car. And if this continues, we're going to see an increase in turbulence, and that's going to hurt overall wheel-to-wheel racing.
Oh, yeah, sure. With that, my point, yes, sure. But I mean, with the porpoising, when other people were complaining about it hurting their backs, you know, it was like Red Bull and Verstappen were like, they should just fix their car, you know? So I'm just saying this does happen with every team that's winning, regardless. Like, if it doesn't suit what they want, then they tend to be quite quiet about it. It's unfortunate, and it shouldn't happen. But
but at some point you have to, even for George right now, it should be something that's about, okay, it's more than just this works for me, so I'll keep my mouth shut. It's about the direction the sport is taking. F1 cars are not the most demanding or the most challenging cars in the world in motorsport right now. They used to be until 2025. They aren't right now. And this is essentially this should not be happening. That's the whole point.
These cars should absolutely, like, if they're going to keep, even if they're going to keep the 50-50 split, like, this should be a sport where, like, you build the absolute peak monster of a car. But there's a reason why it was a stupid reason in 1993 to get rid of it for 1994 with all the traction control aids and everything. Like, they should have given that more time. And you can say, like, we'll need to give this more time because obviously there might be safety reasons and so on. But absolutely, the deployment should be completely controlled by the driver. And the driver should have to figure out when to deploy, when to recharge, all of that stuff. That should not be algorithmically set. There's no reason for it to be. Because... yeah, it just doesn't make any sense that a driver, for example, like coming off a corner, has no control over when to deploy. Like, he should be able to come off that corner and go, don't deploy here, I'm going to save it down the straight, just follow behind and then launch it at the... That should all be on the driver. Otherwise, as you said, like, what is the point, you know? It was the same reason we got rid of traction control. And you could argue traction control was more about safety than anything else to have it there because of the amount of power coming through the rear wheels. But still the sport decided, no, it shouldn't be there. It's a driver aid. And we've stuck by that. So why would we change that here? You know, it doesn't make any sense, you know?
That's the whole issue right now. And one of the bigger probably the biggest pet peeve for me, and maybe not for others, is a large chunk of the electric power that is being used. It is essentially fuel being burned and converted into electric power, and that electric power is used for deployment.
Yeah.
Why not use it simply as
Directly to the
internal
drivetrain.
combustion, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, they set, I think what the premise of the entire set of these regulations was, they went with a very ambitious approach that, okay, we had so 84:16 was the ratio until 2025 with the power unit. And they said, okay, in due time, everyone was able to get on top of it. Fine. We'll set a very ambitious target already, and teams and drivers, they'll ultimately get on top of it. That was maybe the initial thought. The problem is they haven't really taken into account. I would even be fine with the level of the drivers being forced to lift during the straights. I'm fine with that. My concern is, if on the fast speed sections drivers are forced to drive well within themselves, then I'm sorry, what's the point?
The
Where are they
jumping
using the
off the
skills?
onboards during during 130R, I always mess that up. Sorry. That was ridiculous. Like jumping off the onboards and then afterwards having to replay it because they realized, oh, this looks terrible, and it was a software glitch. It's like, I can literally pull the onboard up on my TV, and you're telling me you can't. Like, come on, guys. Like, let's not lie about this. I don't know. Like, you know what? I just think what we need to do with Formula One, or what the FIA need to do with Formula One, is just put more on the teams again, right? And make it an actual team. Like, I've said this for a while now with you about, like, stop trying to put things in the rules to stop the dirty air. Let the teams figure it out. Put a dead limit on the dirty air of like what you can use, and let the teams figure it out, right? And we should do the same with the electrical, right? Instead of making it 50-50, what you should do is, if you could power your car with electricity for the most part, like for parts of the lap, you would want it 100% electric because it's faster out of corners and like at various parts, right? So instead, say to the teams, okay, at a maximum rate of 50-50, you can use as much electricity as you want. However, the rule is you have to be able to use that entire electric over a lap, basically. So you can't run out of electricity during a lap, right? And then it's up to the teams to optimize.
How they deploy.
So if they're like, well, we can only run 70-30, if you can run 50-50, you're probably going to be at an advantage because the electric is instant power to the wheels. It's a lot more controllable. I would imagine. Maybe someone in the comments can let me know here, but just my understanding of it would make sense that if you could do 100% electric, you're going to be faster out of the corners than someone who's having to use
You're going to be
part
faster out of the
gas.
corners, but you won't have consistent power through the lap. And that's why they run out of power by the end of the lap.
So my point is, why not say to them, right, well, if your car only has enough charge over a lap to run 20-80, that's fine. If someone else can do 40-60, they're going to have an advantage because they're going to have more kind of drive out of the corners, more acceleration down the straights.
Yeah.
Let the F1 teams figure it out and say the maximum is 50-50.
And worst case scenario is put a cost cap in place. If you think the costs are going to rise beyond a certain point, put a cost cap. There is a cost cap in place already when it comes to these power units. So
they have the best engineers in the world. Let them figure it out. Tell them, like, this is what you can do, and they'll figure out make it so they're incentivized to make their car more sustainable and use more electric. But don't set a demand on it. Be like, you have to have enough charge for the entire lap, even on a qualifying lap. And these are the cost cap rules. And this is the maximum electricity we can go to. Figure it out. The engineers will figure it out quicker than the FIA will. So
exactly. What
doing here?
Probably angered me the most was the comments from Sainz, where he said that this is something that this is something that the closing speeds, I'm talking about the Behrman Colapinto incident.
Yeah.
So the whole closing speed, so Colapinto was driving at 190 or 100 or 200 kph. Ollie Behrman was at 300 kph.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
There's 100
So
just for reference, it's essentially a truck. You're standing on the road and a truck is going by you. That's essentially means. That's the kind of speed difference that is there. And
my suggestion would make that worse, by the way. I should point that out. So maybe don't listen to me. But yeah.
Because
although I do think the engineers would still figure it out quicker than... but anyway.
Yeah, because your suggestion would essentially have bigger pace differentials in different parts of the track.
Technically speaking, at first, yes. Yeah.
No, ultimately they will all converge to the same solution.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it's going to be pretty much worse than what's happening
So
right now.
we should, if we bring my solution in, I think we should have 2 lanes, a slow lane and a fast lane on every track.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah, we are practicing apartheid here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Hey, whoa. Don't say that word around me. As a white guy, I'm not allowed to talk it. Moving on.
so I can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You're so privileged. Anyway, move on.
Yeah, I get reminded of it every day. So when it comes to the whole situation here, the biggest concern is, so Carlos Sainz revealed that this was something that we talked to the FIA and the I think if the FOM as well. It was done years back, and this is something that has been continuously talked about almost every time there's a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The reply that they've got is, since we are getting good action, we don't think there's a need to change. And I think that's the dumbest reply that one can give in such a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
What the
Also,
fuck
sorry,
does
I just
action
realized
and
my
entertainment
solution
need to
actually wouldn't cause higher closing speeds, because what I'm saying is you have to have your full charge available around the track, and therefore you would have to compensate by using the ice basically more. So what I'm saying, yeah. So anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Some other day.
Yeah.
Some other podcast for that one.
Yeah, we've got 4 weeks of no racing. We can chat this out some other time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And there's one race and then 3 weeks off. Lovely.
Yeah.
And the race is in Miami. Oh, lovely. Another race of super clipping. Anyways, coming back to this. So if the FIA or the governing body is rejecting a safety concern on the basis of this will lead to more action on track, I think there has to be a serious concern on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was essentially, and it seems that I think this was the point where it all came to a halt. Everyone has spoken up very critically of these things, and it's now drivers that are taking charge, except the Mercedes ones. George hasn't said a word about the whole thing, but it was Lewis who talked about it, and he was quite stern in this, and I appreciate him saying that. Alonso said it. Alonso kind of predicted it before the race, where he specifically said that these are not overtakes. What the fuck are you talking about? If there's a car that is going at 80 and another 180, you can either crash into them or you can just avoid them. It's evasive action.
Yeah.
And he's right. And that is probably one of the bigger concerns with these rigs, that the difference in pace is so much. They are just drive-bys. And again, the naked eye won't catch it. And that's why specifically they are not showing the graphics when it comes to the speed of the two cars, because that makes it a bit more naked, that this is the situation that is there right now. But yeah, this is the regulations here. And I hope, again, the FIA had to push out a statement, kind of trying to do a bit of a PR management stuff. I hope we get into a situation in the next couple of weeks where the stakeholders sit down. So what little information I got was post China, they were supposed to sit and have a conversation. There were maybe a couple of manufacturers who kind of vetoed making a haphazard change or making a change at all. Both are German. So make of it what you will. After this one, Toto kind of changed his tune to a certain extent after qualifying, where he said that we need to have better qualifying product. And he's right. Hope he ultimately stands on the whole message that he's put together. These next 2 weeks, they have to sit down, have a conversation. First of all, it's not only about safety, it's also about making these cars a bigger challenge for driving, and so that drivers can make an impact.
Just make it more
And
pure.
if to do that,
actual racing.
and if to do that, 100%. And if to do that, they have to go to a 70-30 split, do it.
Yeah.
Reduce the electric component. I have no issues if the cars end up without power on the straight. Fine, they'll do it once.
Yeah.
If the overall lap is slower by 2 to 3 seconds compared to
I don't
last
care.
year's,
Yeah.
fine. Don't care.
Nobody
Everything's
notices,
fine.
to be honest. So I don't know what you notice in qualifying, but not in the race. And if it just has to be that way during qualifying, it's fine. And even then, during qualifying, you don't notice it that much. And I think these cars, just even with a tiny reduction in proportions, I've noticed, still look faster coming through corners when they're slow than the previous generation. So I would rather them have 2-3 seconds slower a lap time if it means they're at least pushing flat out through the whole lap. You know,
Have you
that's
seen
way
this
better.
thing? And maybe I'm one of the few that have noticed this. the cars on a formation lap, not a, the warm up lap and the one that are pushing, they don't look that much different when it comes to the overall energy of the car or the kind of, because what used to happen in the past on a flying lap, the cars used to be on a, you could see the kind of energy and input that the driver was putting. You don't see that now.
I will say, if you go back and watch 2022 compared to 2021, it felt very much the same. Like I remember watching the first laps of 2022 cars, and I was like, these look so slow compared to the last generation of cars. They look like boats.
Sections, yes.
Just everywhere in general, though. They didn't. And then by the time we got to 2025, they did feel much more on edge, like coming through corners. But if you watch 2022 Bahrain, even coming through the fast speed sections, and then watch 2021 Bahrain and them coming through the same corners, it was night and day difference. They look so much slower coming through.
Yeah.
Even though technically I think they were, at some paces they were going quicker, I think, because they could hold corner speed more on the ground effect. But they looked slower. They just looked clumsier, you know. And I think that's always the case.
Yeah. To a certain extent, yes. Again, that's a different debate. For now, I just hope they sit down and have a conversation on this. I really hope that steps are taken. I seriously hope, because if right now Formula One acts acts like it is taking the sport for granted, I think it's going to be damning for them. If and now switching to the main thing, Max Verstappen leaving. If Max Verstappen does end up retiring from F1 at the end of 2026, there could not be a bigger critique or criticism of these cars than anything else. The sport is going to take a long time to recover from it.
Before we jump to that, just for the record, for anyone who thinks I'm defending these regulations, I just want to quickly clarify my standpoint on this. I hate all artificial stuff in Formula One, to the point where I think I was like one of the only people constantly saying, get rid of DRS. And if it means they can't overtake, then fix the sport some other way. It shouldn't just be an artificial pass on the straight. You should have to figure out strategy. You should have to drive faster through corners. I was like, I don't care. DRS sucks. I hate DRS passes. And then when everyone was like, look at this Max Verstappen Brazil or Lewis Hamilton Brazil, I'm like, yeah, but he DRS overtaked. It's not, I don't care. That's like, anyone can do that if they have the faster car. Like, it's boring. No one's defending. So I hate these because this is like that times 10. The problem is I kind of got myself prepped for this, and I was like, this is going to be the worst season ever, and I'm going to hate all of this. And that's how my mind was. And now my mind's just going, hey, look, 3 teams are fighting for a win. So I'm just finding wins anywhere I can because my expectations were so low.
I mean, yeah.
So
by the way, in case you're new to the podcast, hit subscribe. You've already reached 30-minute mark. Hit subscribe.
So now Max is complaining, I guess. But sorry if you're going to say something.
So talking about Max only, when it comes to Max here, if he does end up leaving, I think that's probably the biggest black eye you'll actually have on these regulations. And if that doesn't push the sport to ultimately make changes, I don't think anything will. And again, we cover the sport in whichever capacity both of us do. I think it's safe to say, and again, this is going to piss off a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans, Max Verstappen is the biggest traction generator, engagement generator, clicks, views, whatever. There's no one that comes close to Max since 2025. Every driver, including Lewis, does not belong in the same category.
For the record, it would have been Lewis before then. Like, that's... This is what happens in Formula One. Like, the multiple world champions get most of the engagement because they have most of the fans. This is just, it's almost always the way. You know?
Not only that, it's just that in the last year or so, because he has gone ahead and tried Nürburgring. I think it was last year he did that, right? With the GT3 cars.
We calculated that or corrected that last week.
Yeah. Someone liked that comment, apparently.
I saw that,
Yeah. So for Max, he has gotten, he right now, you know, if we talk to a very, very layman and a casual fan who's talking about Formula One, they talk about Max now. Earlier, they used to talk about Lewis Hamilton, and that's where he is right now. He is mainstream.
Yeah.
And if those people, they are going to watch, okay, they're following the sport but at a distance, not going into the nitty-gritties. And if they see that, okay, Max Verstappen has left the sport because of these regulations, I think at that point there couldn't be a bigger indictment of these rigs.
Because people won't think about like the nuance on like, because there's certain things that he said that I'm kind of like, yep, I agree with that, and other things that he said where I'm like, I don't know if you'd be saying that if you were winning. You know, like there's parts of his conversation where I'm like, some of that's because Red Bull's not doing great, and other parts of it I'm like, no, absolutely correct.
To a certain extent, yes, but I think
I think the majority, by the way,
would have left anyways.
The majority, by the way, I agree with him on. But there are certain instances where you're like, you're just annoyed because you're not winning. But I think that's the minority. To a certain extent,
yes.
Yeah, it's the minority that I will say.
I agree. I think if, I mean, we have to understand.
He'd still be complaining if he was winning, though. I think we both agree on that, because I think there's certain parts of the regulations where he's like, honestly, just like, yeah, this is just bullshit. And I think he speaks.
And I can understand that, isn't it? I think even we can see this thing because if, as I pointed out earlier, 50% of the power is not in his control. He cannot push the car to the limit on a qualifying lap. He cannot push the car to the limit during wheel-to-wheel racing or any such point. Then he's essentially, he would, and again, if I'm stating something on those lines that drivers are essentially becoming passengers, he would say the same thing. Even though, again, there are areas where drivers can make some difference. Understandable, they will continue to do that. And again, these are the best driving talents in the entire world. So they will find a way to differentiate themselves from the herd.
And they'll figure out how to play with the systems and so on as well. So like
exactly.
We also do need to caveat all this with this is like three races into a very different regulation set. So there's going to be things that they're just not figuring out yet, and that's fine. That's part of F1 as well. Like this isn't a spec series, and we never want it to be either. So there has to be that. But yeah, when it's 50% that they just can't control, I have a problem with that personally. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's his concern as well. Plus, you know, if you talk about Max, again, there are reasons for him to leave. He's a 4-time world champion already. And I don't think he has ever... Again, he should have been more hungry even in 2025 when he didn't really put the entire... He didn't bunch up the field like Lewis did in 2016. He should have.
And Red Bull didn't. They weren't risky enough in Brazil. This
isn't Red Bull, right? We should find a new name for this.
This is the new Red Bull. It's
it is. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll need to find a new name for this team. Dead Bull is probably the better one. Yeah. So. Anyways, so first of all, achievements are done, ticked off. Secondly, when it comes to money, I think he's already got enough money to survive an entire generation. So that's ticked off. Yeah. Plus, if he goes to different series, different racing series, he's going to generate income even there.
Plus, let's be honest,
not the same one. Yeah.
Let's be honest here. Alonso is proof that if he ever wants to come back, he'll be fine. Like he could fuck off and come back. You know.
Yeah. 100%. And plus, he'll go there. He'll get refreshed. Whatever. And again, look, 24 races turning up to different parts of the world in cars that don't even allow you to push. What? There's no point to it, right?
Yeah, that's his 24 races you're not enjoying. Like, why bother? You know, that way. Like,
exactly.
Obviously, he's probably going to have to live out this year anyway, contractually. You know, I think he will. Because I think as much as like there's certain things I annoy me about Verstappen, I think he is a decent guy when it comes to like he's not just going to let the team down. You know, so like he will leave the team if he has to. But
yeah, 100%. My whole thing with him is that. If he leaves, I completely understand. And maybe right. Maybe if he was winning, he would have been fine. But it doesn't give you the same kind of, for the lack of a better word, satisfaction with these cars. You're winning, fine, you're winning. But you've won in more challenging conditions with probably more challenging opposition.
Yeah.
Because, okay, tell me, I have this theory, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't think Max considers even a single driver on the current grid as an equal or a competition right now.
No, I don't think he does. Maybe Leclerc.
Maybe Leclerc.
Maybe Leclerc.
Anyone else.
I don't think he's correct on that either. I think in the same car, while I think personally he's the best driver and he could probably beat anyone in the same car, I do think there's a few drivers on the grid who would give him serious competition in the same car. And maybe win. Yeah. We don't know. Like, I mean, we're making a lot of assumptions. The thing is as well with Formula One, people make a lot of assumptions very quickly of like, oh, well, like, you know, Vettel was never a Verstappen. And it's like, no, it's which one we argue with. And I know we're Vettel fans, but like at one point people talked about Vettel in the same way people talk about Verstappen right now. They all thought he was going to be the next Schumacher, and then Red Bull collapsed in 2014 and he was nowhere.
And then he took a suicidal call,
Yeah. So like, this is the thing about Formula One where everyone just assumes best driver in the grid, no one's going to beat him. And then he gets beaten. So we don't know. Maybe there's someone on the grid who could bring it to him. For right now, I don't see anyone who could beat Verstappen like for like, same car.
Yeah.
But maybe we'd be proven
I think
wrong.
even
But
he doesn't
competition,
think that.
yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's our opinion, but I don't think even he considers anyone as a competition right now.
Yeah.
He
And I
doesn't think that there is anyone that is going to be a challenge, the challenge that he has to surmount.
Yeah.
And I think that leads to him having no motivation to continue.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm getting to. That for you to be motivated, there has to be, like for Ayrton Senna, right? When Prost retired, the one thing that he told Prost was, now who am I going to fight against?
Yeah.
Even though Michael was emerging at the same time.
I think if he had have been around longer, it probably would have just been him and Michael fighting for a few years, and that would have been
if 94,
Unfortunately, if they hadn't have made that stupid decision in 93, like again, I'm glad they got rid of traction control in the driver aids, but the way they made the decision so late, it was always going to end that way.
Preparation, by the way, just 4 months of preparation.
Teams, and to put that in perspective, the teams took over chassis and cars that were built for traction control and for aerodynamic advantages like active aero, and then said, right, just turn all those things off. And as Nui said himself,
I mean, we are being very, very layman.
It's more or less that one. I mean, more or less. I mean, yes, there are nuances, but more or less. Nui himself said these cars were aerodynamically unstable because they were built to have the driver aids in. So,
I mean, they were told, as I said, just 4 months. They had 4 months heads up before the regulations.
Canadian Grand Prix, right? In 93,
I don't remember
when they were told.
It was.
I believe it was.
Yeah. So Max Mosley, essentially, that's how he used to run ship. Just one day randomly come out and these are the regulations, work with it. So that was how things used to be.
When your weekends are filled with Nazi orgies, it doesn't seem that crazy. So, allegedly.
We need to stop using those words, right? Once we get monetized, that's going to be a big fucking problem.
It's fine.
Anyways, for me, look, I think we've talked about it in the past as well. I've never really bought on the idea that Max is going to retire at the end of the season. I always thought that the hunger was there, but so the audio transcript. I
think he could now.
Saturday. Yeah. As I said, I think on the media scrum that actually went viral on Saturday. So before it went viral, I was listening to it, and he sounded defeated. He didn't really want to be there, and quite a few times while he was talking, he just stopped and he started. It seems like when a person is introspecting and trying to figure out what he wants to do in life, isn't it? He was having that existential crisis in front of the media, which was very weird. But at that point, I was like, okay, fine. He's not going to. If things don't change, he won't be in 27.
And not to bring up Vettel again, but like we saw this with Vettel in was it 2019 or
2014?
Sure. But also in Ferrari in 2019 or 2020 as well. I remember he was just like, roughly, if I can't fight for wins, like what's the point in being here? And Aston Martin obviously made sense because it was a project, as there was something else to fight for, kind of.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe what Max needs now, because like, does he really want to stick around to rebuild Red Bull? The
problem is the cars are not fun, and I can.
That's the bigger problem.
I can completely understand the thing when he comes out and says that these cars are not fun to drive, and so he's 100% right.
So the question I'd have though is, right, if he was fighting for wins, do you think he'd stick it out longer? Because I think yes, I do think so, because I think your fight would be, yes, I get to fight for a win, and there's part of his competitive energy that. His competitive spirit will be, I'm fighting someone for a win here, so there's a value to it. And then I can keep complaining until they fix these regulations, because I don't like them. Whereas if you hate the regulations and you're fighting for a P7 after fighting for championships, as Vettel said before, I don't care about a P7 after fighting for wins. Like it was like he talked about how Leclerc was super happy at getting a P5, and he's like, I get a P5. I'm like, I've just spent years winning. Like a P5 means nothing to me. So it's both, and I think he might be more willing to kind of fight to change the regulations if he cared about what he was doing on track as well. And the reason I think that Max could leave now is I really do think Antonelli has now proven to be what Toto was hoping he would be. And I think the likelihood of Max going to Mercedes now, I personally think is off the table. Because I think Max would come in to replace George Russell, and I don't think Toto wants that now. I think it's a why
let's
would I
have
bring
the
him over
picking
here?
order discussion a bit later, because I might have
Sure.
I might have a curveball for you when it comes to Mercedes dominating, probably. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well a bit later.
Yeah.
I think you might be right when it comes to Max might stick it out if he was winning.
I think
Probably.
he'd have something to fight for. Whereas
Yeah.
now there's neither. Like, I'm
It's
not just saying
meaningless.
he's only complaining because he's not winning. I think his arguments are valid about the racing, and I think even if he was winning, he'd still be complaining about these cars in the way he is. But I think at least he'd have something to fight for and something to bring him back every weekend. But when you
100%.
dislike the racing and you're fighting for a P7 in a race, like like that's fine if you're a bearman. But when you've already got the championships, already got the wins, like. As again, I hate bringing Vettel up every time, but he said it so clearly out of all the racing drivers. He's like, after winning, I don't want to fight for a P5, and that's fair enough. That's understandable. So
And yeah, by 2019, I think there was also the element of he saw where the project was heading. It was not in the right direction. He'd done it. He'd put in a lot of effort, and he'd seen team
and as
pretty
he
much
said,
giving
I don't
him
want to
the
cheat
cold
to
shoulder.
win either.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on from this. By the way, again, we are talking about Max Verstappen right now. So I was super critical of this thing. I don't think I saw your view on this. The whole thing with the Guardian journalist.
I think he was wrong there. Like, I think Max is entitled to complain, but the way he went about it, I'm like, I don't like that. Like, look, I think the Guardian's questioning is like, guys, come on. Like, I know you're a tabloid, technically,
Is it? I'm not.
Is the Guardian a tabloid, or
huge
am I confusing it with something else? I thought in the UK,
Daily Mail is a tabloid. Guardian.
yeah, but so is the
Guardian
Sun,
does
and there
good
was
stuff.
various other ones. I thought the Guardian was a tabloid, but maybe I'm wrong on this. It's been a long time since I've lived
been
in
asked
London, so
once by Guardian to write an op-ed or something. I don't.
maybe it's
know.
not. Maybe I'm confusing it with a different one. But I could have sworn one of the Guardians was a tabloid. But anyway,
Guardian is a decent one. It's not a tabloid.
okay.
Essentially.
Maybe I'm wrong on this. But yeah, the point is, look, I think it was a question. It's like, guys, this has been asked and answered. So I do think the question was like, why are you bringing this up other than just to get clicks and views? Like, stop. But Max's response to that should be more, I've already answered this, no comment, and just put the mic down. Enough. That's it. Because obviously, if you start getting annoyed, what's going to happen in this day and age? People are going to ask the question more. If you get annoyed about something every time you're asked, you're just inviting people to ask again and again. So the answer should be no comment. Done. I think his response was kind of ridiculous, to be honest. And to kick the journalist out, I'm sorry, it's just not the way it's done. Like, I think it's ridiculous, personally.
Yeah, because what happened is so for me, I just slept a bit late that day, which has become far too usual. So when I
was
woke
quite
up and
drunk, so
that was you, not
yeah.
I'm
Irish, so I'm
anyways,
always drunk. So
you're Irish.
yeah. Sorry.
So
go ahead.
when I first saw the whole thing, so for me the information came in, you can say, packets. The first packet was essentially the first part where Max chucks out a reporter. They're like, fine, okay, maybe he told him to leave. Maybe the conversation was cordial. He said that, okay, we are boycotting any conversation with the Guardian. We don't appreciate the kind of language, the line of questioning and everything. If he had gone ahead and done that, I would have been okay with it. Because
The Lance Stroll approach. Gotcha.
what is the Lance Stroll approach?
Not talk to anyone who says anything bad about me.
Yeah. Okay. So once that happens, I'm fine with it. If you remember, Max kind of did the same thing with Sky Sports in 2022 when the whole thing blew up. Where it was Ted Kravitz and the whole thing about
it was Red Bull
winning
as
the
a whole,
championship.
right? Got behind that and said,
Yeah.
and to be
Exactly.
honest, again, I'd prefer you just to not comment and just call it out and call it BS. But if you do it cordially, that's your prerogative. You can do that if you want to. As long as it's
my thing
cordial.
is, because what usually happens is the PR teams are there and the driver communicates to the PR team that, okay, tell this particular so and so publication that we are not going to be communicating. And at that point, that particular journalist, whoever it is, they can be escorted out and they can be told, no, it's done.
Yeah.
But what happened was when I ultimately the audio clip came out and when I heard it, it was disgraceful. It was essentially a rich man talking down to a peasant. That's how it sounded to me. And
I didn't hear the audio. I just heard what happened. But like, was he
Yeah.
just shouting? Was he shouting?
No,
it? Like,
it was a very condescending tone when he said, I'd leave if he stays. That was the first thing. Then Richards came in and said that, what is it about? And then it was something, the question that he asked 4 months back in Abu Dhabi. So he said, at that point, he said that, okay, are you still unhappy with it? Max simply said, you should go. It was fine until he said, you should go. But when he said, get out, okay, get out. That's where it kind of pissed me off. Because at that point, you're essentially breaking the basic level of courtesy or professionalism that you should have. Michael used to boycott Martin Brundle back in the day. Because of, again, Michael was targeted by the British media. Max has been targeted by the British media as well. 2021 was probably one of the more toxic seasons I've seen since 2018, when Vettel was targeted.
I remember getting annoyed at Ted Kravitz in 2022 as well. And I'm not even a Max fan. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, Ted Kravitz needs to be told to shut the fuck up. Like, this is crazy.
Exactly.
Like, I remember getting annoyed about that. So,
yeah. So once that is happening, I have no issues with Max saying, okay, I don't want to talk to this particular journalist.
Sure. Yeah.
My whole thing is, if Max today or tomorrow comes up and goes and confronts Ted Kravitz and tells him, get out, what would be the reaction today? Because Kravitz is a more prominent name. At that point, would we see repercussions? We probably would.
Probably.
Why aren't we seeing it right now?
You probably see a fine, like this wasn't communicated before. The journalists are allowed access. It's part of your media duties. So, you can't just kick a journalist out for saying something you don't like. You can put a process through for the next one and say, for the next time, I'd prefer if that guy wasn't in here. Can you take care of that? Like, fair enough. And then it can be done through formal roles and properly, professionally done. Like, at the end of the day, this is a guy being paid, a lot of money to be there as well, So, like, if he's not happy with a question, this is what it is very hard sometimes for people to feel sorry, let's be honest, for an athlete. It's like, you're paid like $2 million a week to be here for 24 races. It's roughly $2 million a week.
Yeah.
I think you should be able to get over someone asking you a question you don't like. I mean, I think that's what most people will feel like,
Yeah. And one of the dumbest things for me was, so Max was asked by Viaplay to, comment on this thing. And by the way, the journalists that have a habit to suck up to a driver and form these clicks, the Dutch segment, they pretty much were jacking off to Max after what happened.
Yeah, of
essentially
course.
taking his side, and
he was right to do it, and
whatever that was. So once that happened again, Max had the answer prepared, and he said that, okay, he asked the question and he was laughing on my face. This is completely incorrect. I have on good authority that Gilles at the time wasn't laughing on his face. He asked a question, Max got offended, so he had a nervous smile, which happens, which is very common that it happens, right? And
I mean, if a driver has that reaction, you're in this place, it's so normal. It's kind of normal for you to be like, the fuck, like, what's going on
exactly
here?
Exactly. And once that happened,
laughing in his face, which is probably why I'm not an F1 journalist.
Yeah, the thing is, he acted mature and he didn't really try to create a fuss and everything. He could have very easily done that, but he didn't. And once that was the entire, you can say, the chain of events that Max shared. So John Noble, in the recent podcast on the race, he clarified it that none of that happened. Gilles was not laughing on Max's face. Gilles had a sheepish smile when Max ultimately kind of got a bit heated. At that point, Gilles was exactly. He was.
What's the other option? What, start shouting at him?
Can't really,
like,
you can't really have a back and forth at that point.
Like, what are you supposed to do? Start shouting at him like that? What's the other option there? Like,
exactly. So once that has happened, this could have been handled in a much better manner. That's my whole thing. You have an issue with a journalist. I can understand that. I can understand even if maybe Guardian has targeted Max in the past. Yeah. But you cannot do this thing. This is crossing the line.
Yeah.
And again,
it's not the way you're supposed to deal
the tribalistic Verstappen fan base, disrespect goes both ways. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It shouldn't be like this. But yeah, he ended up making a lot of enemies with his entire, what should we call it? conduct
Tirade,
at that
tantrum.
point. Yeah. Fuck. I mean, we've gone through 50 minutes and we haven't talked about the race. So let's talk about the Japanese Grand
Let's
Prix.
talk about the race. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kimi Antonelli won.
Yeah.
Okay, so he has won 2 races in 2 out of 3 races, isn't it? And this was... So I hadn't noticed this earlier. By the way, I predicted Kimi Antonelli winning the race. Who did I predicted Max to be on the podium and Ferrari to crash. Well, Ferraris made contact, they didn't really crash. So
Yeah.
I'm at least 30%.
I think
right.
I said George, Antonelli, Leclerc or something like that.
Yeah, so you're also 30% right.
Yeah.
Went with the most vanilla.
I didn't think McLaren would start the race, so
Yeah, I don't think even they did when they came here. So when it's apparently Russell's bogey track, he hasn't out-qualified.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
Lewis at
has
any
been
point.
one of his worst tracks, right? So
Seems like it.
I think so.
But even if it was one of his worst tracks, Kimi had him not only covered, but he had him covered by a distance throughout the race weekend. And this is irrespective of the setup gamble that he made that didn't really work out ultimately after FP3. Even until that point, George was a significant distance behind Kimi throughout FP1, FP2, FP3. And the race execution from George was not up to par, I'd say.
Yeah.
And again, he got a bit unlucky with the safety car.
In fairness, it was very unlucky with the safety car.
Yeah.
Like literally the lap after.
Yeah.
Can't really get much less luck, you know.
But I think Kimi would have still beaten him.
Mm-hmm.
He was that much faster than
I
him,
think so too. The question would have been if the safety car hadn't come out, would he have been able to beat Piastri? That would have been my question. Probably.
Kimi?
But,
Yes, I think he would have.
Probably.
The gap was too big. 5 or 6 tenths per lap he was putting on.
Well, the only thing is the Mercedes does seem to be a lot better in clear air and seems to be highly affected by dirty air. That's what it seems like to me. So I'm not sure, but
I think the approach was going to be George pitted. So after that, Kimi was going to go long in terms of he would have extended his stint. And then at certain point, he would have pitted. The problem with George was going to be he was going to be stuck behind Oscar and Kimi was going to be in the free air. I think he would have still pulled through.
Well, I think this is the thing. I think Kimi, would have beaten George because I think George was just not driving great through the whole race. And the reason I'm not sure about Piastri is I think once Antonelli got into, say, Piastri's dirty air, like we saw when George was in the dirty air, how much it was affecting him compared to free air. So, and also Piastri, I think, was driving well enough to be able to kind of place the car right and so on. So I think that would have been fun to watch, frankly. And I do think Antonelli would have beaten Russell, but would Antonelli have beaten Piastri would have been the other question.
Essentially,
by the way, probably, but I'm not sure. I couldn't say definitively.
It's worth... it would have been worth watching. Yeah, we kind of got robbed of the main action for the lead, isn't it? The safety car. But for me, the biggest question is, at 19 years of age in just your second year, you shouldn't be doing this to one of the best drivers in F1. Mm-hmm. And I think this should... and again, George's post-race reaction, it showed, because he is starting to find out that, okay, this is not going to be easy.
I think this is surprising and probably in a similar way to... probably in an even more exaggerated version of like Oscar showing up in the year of the championship for Lando. You know, like this is a more exaggerated version of that even because like I think Lando always knew how good Oscar was, but Oscar definitely made a huge step in season 3 compared to season 2. And this is now Antonelli in season 2 against George, who I think we all agree is a more complete driver than even Lando was at that point, you know? So if Antonelli fixes his starts, which again sounds very Lando-esque, but yeah, if Antonelli can fix his starts, there's not much else that Antonelli seems to be bad at. I don't even see him having like the tire management issues that actually, you know what, that might be just luck with the regulations because you don't really have as much tire management in these regs as before because you're not driving as quickly. I think it's going to be an interesting one because he's now leading the championship. There's obviously a long way to go. I think George is probably lucky as well that he has the 4 weeks to kind of reset and get back to normal because let's be honest here, George is usually pretty fucking consistent. So
he's had a bit of misfortune as well, right? In China
Yeah.
with the qualifying lap, it wasn't
Yeah.
good.
Issues with the car.
whole issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even here, again, now a lot of Russell fans got pissed off when I said that George didn't have a good weekend, and they pointed out that the setup change didn't work. But the driver is part of those decisions.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
part
that's-
of it, right? So you
In
can't
China,
really-
I think it's fair to say like he had literal reliability issues on the qualifying lap. Like it's hard to come back from that. And he did a pretty good job then of catching up in the race. He couldn't beat Kimi, but you know, he came through.
Yeah.
This weekend, like even if it was his choice on the setups, I gave Lewis Hamilton a hard time for experimental setups, so I'm not going to stop with George, you know, like.
But the thing is, he was slower even before the whole gamble in FP3 with the setup.
Yeah.
George was not on Kimi's pace at any point in this race weekend, and let's see what happens. Again, it's the same thing, right? Because at 19 years of age, so when in 2018, how old was Max? Which it was his 15, 16, 17. That was his
19,
fourth year.
20? Because he joined when he was 17, right? So that was 2015. So 20, probably 19 or 20, like depending on the time of year.
20 years of age and 4 years of F1 experience. Because I think in my view, Max just morphed into a complete driver by after Monaco
2018.
GP 2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the point where
Probably like 20,
the inflection point. Yeah. If Kimi is doing this in the second season, he's doing it faster than Max did.
Yeah.
Which is a stunning claim to make, and I'm making it too early because there have only been 3 races. But the fact that he's leading the championship, and if you notice, there was a change of demeanor this time around in the post-race press conference. Not the press conference, the scrum that they have just afterwards. And if you remember the first race, he was very emotional. He was like, okay, fine, wow, I won the race and everything. Here it was, I won. It was like he expected to win.
He even like the way he said, I got a little bit lucky with the safety car, but the pace, you know, it was very like, oh, okay. This is
he knows the championship is on. Yeah. And again, I've raised these questions when it comes to Kimi regarding whether he's there mentally, whether he knows that there's a championship on the line. This was the weekend where he showed that, okay, he knows there's a championship on the line and he knows that he has a good chance of maybe coming out on top.
Yeah.
Dangerous days for George.
I still like, it'll be interesting to see because I think there's a lot to winning a championship that goes into it. And I think like George might be lucky in one way that like you tend to have a certain amount of bad luck through a season, and maybe George will get his out of the way early and then move on. You know, like we've seen that a lot in Formula One. It's a long season. But yeah, it's going to be hard to beat George week in, week out. But you have to say, like, Antonelli is definitely having a much better start than I thought he would have. Like, I thought he'd be brilliant this season, but I thought he'd be a dead second fiddle to George, you know, because George has been the driver who could win a championship for a long time now. Like we saw in
he was ready in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, but even like we saw in 2020, he jumped in a Mercedes for the first time and by rights should have won the race. Like if
here even Lance would have won a race in that car.
Sure, but I mean, against Bottas, even, you know, he destroyed Bottas through that weekend, you could say. I know. But the point is, like, we've known he's been a driver capable of winning races for a long time now, you know. So, if Kimi beats George in his first season, that's
okay. At that point, then the entire field is on notice, and then then Max has a challenge to look up to.
Again, though, as I said earlier, I think because of the way this is going, I think the idea of Max going to Mercedes for me, I think is done.
Yeah, it's done.
Because I think the only reason that like Toto would consider that is if, for example, we got to this season and if George won the title, I think Toto would, or was like destroying Kimi in the title, for example, I think Toto might think to himself, well, replacing George with a Max is kind of like for like, you know, at the worst, it's like for like. At the best, it's a big upgrade for me from George to Max, even if George is a title winner. But Kimi is his project. You know, this is his redo of passing on Max Verstappen. So he's not going to want Jos and Max on the other side of the garage pulling things away from Kimi. And I think that'll be it. I think Toto will be like, no, I don't need a Max now, because if Kimi loses to George, George will still kind of stay under whatever happened there.
Yeah, power mint.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I just saw a big light. Thankfully, it wasn't a nuclear missile. But yeah,
Not for now.
that would really fuck the podcast for a couple of weeks. Yeah. But yeah, I just don't see. I don't see Max replacing George, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anymore.
At this point, even I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's going to happen. Yeah.
And by the way, I
George's-
think that's by the fault of Jos and the management team. I think if they
100%.
hadn't have forced Horner out and brought all that kind of public discourse up, I think there's a good chance Toto might have been like, oh, we can manage that. We can figure this out. I think after that, Toto will be like, no, I've seen what they did at Red Bull and I don't need that here. You know?
I also think one major issue is if you're signing a Max Verstappen, you want a long-term commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And the driver is thinking about retiring from the sport, then what's the point in trying to pursue
True.
something like that?
Yeah. I think that's less of an issue though, because I think if he was signing a contract with Mercedes, you could commit him to 3 or 4 years at least and then figure it out from there.
Yeah,
But
retirement is something you do, right? It's not you're like Rosberg was signed with Mercedes until 2018, but if you're announcing your retirement, you're done. That's just how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe that's also on the table. By the way, George, do you think he seemed a bit rattled by where he is right now? How do you think let's leave that aside. How do you think he'll handle the new challenge that he's facing?
I think fine. I think as long as he, I think the thing is, it'll just depend on the next couple of races. Like if he goes to Miami and has another thing, even if it's not him, even if it's bad luck again, I think it'll start to rattle him. Like if he has a badly timed safety car or something that takes the win away from him, even if that happens, I think you could see it happening like Lando a little bit, where it's like, shit, like this has gotten away from me now. And I think unlike Lando, where Lando, I think, likes fighting from behind, I think that was more his style. I think that will hit George a different way, because I think George is very confident in, like, I think George is one of the few drivers on the grid that thinks, no, I'm better than Max. I could beat Max in the same car. You know, I think there's a few drivers like that and just think that in their head. Surprisingly, Alonso isn't one. And Alonso thinks he could beat anyone except Max.
I mean, he thinks he can beat Max in DTM. So
true. Yeah.
There's this conversation they had, right?
I really hope that happens. It will be fun. Yeah. It would be fun to watch.
Who knows?
But yeah, I think it'll hurt George more than it would hurt any other driver, because I think he is very, very secure in that. And if
I think he would not have expected this to happen. For me, the whole thing is it rattles you more if you don't expect it to happen. Yeah, and I think it's going to rattle him right now, because I don't think he expects this to happen, and that's where the whole. It's a challenge he didn't expect. I think it's a challenge he didn't expect, and he didn't expect Kimi to be there already. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens with them.
Yeah,
let's talk about McLaren then, because I'll start with the hot take. I think McLaren might end up being a title contender this season.
I don't know why that's a hot take. I think we said this earlier, like 2 podcasts ago or something.
We say this, we talk about it, but I have not seen anyone of the respective voices.
I keep getting told by people, Mercedes is clearly the best aero team, and I'm like, what sport are you watching?
Who's saying that?
I've had comments on my podcast, or sorry, not my podcast, my Wheel Sports channel. Oh, and by the way, welcome to the Wheel Sports viewers who are here now. Yeah, I think some people think that, and I do think, like, Mercedes right now have a better aero package because they've been upgrading and they've been bringing stuff, and McLaren just frankly haven't. But I think, like, when we went to day 1 of testing, for example, I think McLaren had a better aero package that day than Mercedes did. And I think McLaren have a better path. And I think McLaren, when it comes to aero, will outdevelop them. And we're watching week in, week out, McLaren getting faster without upgrades, and the only reason McLaren can get faster without upgrades is because they're understanding the engine better. So if McLaren take another step in Miami with understanding the engine, which is clearly still there, because most of the time they're losing is in deployment, still, it's not aero. I mean,
they're losing in aero as well. I mean,
they are, but I think the majority is. I think it's, at the very most, I would say it's 50-50. That it could be 3/4 tenths in aero, 3/4 tenths in engine deployment. That's what it looks like to me.
again, so from Andreas Stella, right now, what he said was 3/10 is from aero, 1/10 is from the power unit deployment. And I'll tell you the entire breakdown.
But there was an 8
so
tenths different, right?
there was 4/10 different.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then I'm wrong. Sorry.
So how it has gone is in Australia, they were 8 or 9/10 behind. At that point, McLaren was losing around 6 or so tenths in deployment. That was the gap in Australia.
Okay.
Then
so I must still have the Australia one in my head then. Okay.
Yeah. Then we moved to China. China, it was 6/10. And in that particular case, it was 4/10 with the aero and 2/10 with the power unit. They've cut that power unit gap down to 1/10 now. I mean, they're still losing at some places, but they've cut that gap down even more. And okay, so in case guys, you're not aware, here what happened during the McLaren car launch was what they did, Rob Marshall kind of explained the McLaren strategy, how they were going to go about it. So they said that they were going to bring a decently developed car to Barcelona, the shakedown, and from that point onwards until Melbourne, they're not going to put anything on the car.
Miami.
They're just going to. Yeah, the first upgrade will come in Miami. But until that point, there's going to be no development, nothing. In Melbourne, they are going to take a look at the directions that the rivals have taken. Then they're going to see what is the most optimal path. And then they'll do their development strategy.
Yeah.
So they've been a bit fortunate, you can say, because Bahrain and Saudi are gone. Because maybe those two races would have also been a bit of a pain for McLaren, having an underdeveloped car. But now in Miami, they're going to bring their major upgrade.
Yeah.
And the last time they did so was in 2024, where they started the season as the third fastest car. Miami, 2024, Lando wins the race, McLaren fastest car.
Well, if you think even on just in simple terms, right, we're talking about a season of new regulations where there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to find in aero development, right?
Yeah.
If it is true that like they are now 1/10 off in engine deployment,
Power unit
right,
deployment,
and figuring that out,
yeah.
right? Then by all rights, they'll probably go with all the data they have. If they've already dropped that from 4/10 to 1/10, then it's completely reasonable to say they'll find that 10th between now and Miami, just looking at the data that they have, right? They'll figure it out. 3/10, they can easily find that with one big package, right? Because like you have to think if they showed up in Barcelona with like kind of what I thought was like similar kind of styles in aero, or not style in aero, but like from everything I saw from that, and then from Bahrain, I think in aero they were pretty close to Mercedes there. So I think Mercedes has gathered some ground in upgrades. So I think it's completely reasonable that the McLaren could show up to Miami and suddenly be on par with, or perhaps ahead of Mercedes. Depends on what Mercedes brings in terms of upgrades as well, obviously.
Yeah, they're also going to bring something.
Of course. So how much ground can Mercedes find? But if it was up to who I think can develop the most over the season in aero specifically, my money's on McLaren all day long, because
And the biggest thing is Mercedes has been upgrading their car. Until the race in Japan, they brought multiple upgrade packages, even though they've not been significant ones. They brought I think an entirely new car in the second preseason test in Bahrain.
Yeah.
So they've made a major upgrade then. And since then, there have been bits and pieces that have been coming on pretty much every race.
Yeah.
McLaren has had nothing on the car. And ultimately, it's a cost cap year, right? So you have limited resources and limited allocation that you can do. McLaren hasn't touched theirs. Mercedes has already ate into a part of it. And even then, they are just, 3/10 ahead in terms of the chassis. That gap could be easily...
Yeah.
In the worst case scenario, they can become competitive against Mercedes, even if they're not going to
I think
outright challenge them.
I would be genuinely surprised if they can figure out the engine, which by the sounds of it, they essentially already have figured out most of the issue. So once they figure the engine out, like for anyone new to this, they've got the exact same power unit. So it's all just understanding. It's not like they're missing pieces or upgrades. It's just understanding. So if they can get on top of that, then it just purely comes down to who can develop the best aero. And I just think like if it was more than 3 or 4 tenths, I'd be a bit concerned for McLaren, because that might mean they need to completely like change how they're packaging the engine and these kind of things. But if they can figure the reliability out, which again, it looks like they did better this weekend. They still have some niggles and stuff, but they're getting there. then I just think like 3/4 is not that big in a brand new regulation cycle for a team like McLaren, who at the moment, when it comes to their aero team, they're the class of the field. Like they have the best aero team at the minute, you know, and until proven otherwise. And I just don't. I think Mercedes for the last 4 years has proven that their aero team is subpar to Red Bull and McLaren. And you know, maybe they're better than Red Bull now because that team seems to be falling apart quicker than I expected, unfortunately. But yeah.
Even I didn't think it would be this fast. Exactly. So just to top it all off, Oscar Piastri, probably the one of the best drivers this weekend. Okay, tell me something. Could he have won the race?
I think so. If the safety car hadn't come out. But I do think like it would have been very difficult because he would have basically for lap after lap after lap have to hold off a faster car behind. However, it can be tricky to overtake here, and frankly, like Oscar is one of the better wheel-to-wheel racers on the grid. So I think when it comes to car placement, he's good at defending. He would have figured it out. So especially with like a young Kimi Antonelli, I think Oscar is one of those kind of
from Kimi only.
I think so.
Where we agree.
Yeah. I think George was slower. So I think it would have been from Kimi eventually. The good thing he would have had probably is that Kimi probably would have had to first get past George, and I don't think George would have made it easy. I think he would have got past him, but
the team order would not have been there either.
I don't think so. So I think he would have had some reprieve of like George would have been a backstop to kind of slow him down. But then when he gets past, it depends how many laps there is. But I do think he could have held maybe Antonelli off for a long time, because whether he could have won, I don't know. But I think there was a chance that he could have won the race.
I agree. There was.
Yeah.
And that should tell you everything about where McLaren is right now, because if it was a Ferrari that was ahead, I would not have made the bet.
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah. They've got the same
Ferrari then, by the
basically.
Way.
So
Coming to Ferrari, by the way. Another podium for Charles. I think he was, in my view, it's a toss-up between Charles and Oscar as the best driver of the race weekend in Japan.
Charles drove brilliantly.
Just
got
everything
really
was on par.
With the safety car as well, just like a few others, you know.
He didn't get lucky, right?
No, he got unlucky, I said, with the safety car.
Yeah, he got unlucky.
It was Hamilton that got lucky with it and still ended up behind.
He ended up behind. He finished P6, right?
Yep.
Yeah, apparently, he talked about having some deployment issues, but nothing in the... so Fred Visser was asked, and Fred Visser has these long answers and he never talks about what's...
Is Hamilton going to start doing experimental deployments now for the rest of the season or something, is he?
Anyways, again, they get a podium, fine. But the reality is they were third fastest already this weekend.
Yeah.
You look at Ferrari's season where they are right now, they've got a podium every race, and they've tried to compete with Mercedes, the Mercedes lads to a certain extent. But after the first three races, would you call Ferrari's 2026 right now a success or a failure?
Ferrari's entire season so far, or
first three races?
I'd say they're a success. I think they're a success. I think, look, they've built what I think is a really good car. They've built something that, you know, the engine even, like, they need to get on top of deployment, but they have beaten Mercedes at other points in the engine. Like the compromise with the turbo and so on for the starts, I think was a good one. I just think maybe that was like, I think might have been the wrong compromise, but then you have to say it depends on like clearly the deficiencies in deployment, not in the ICE. So I think
it's 25 HP slower or weaker
in the ICE,
you want to call it.
But overall
ICE.
Okay, I didn't think it'd be that much.
So they would get the concession through the power, the ADU.
Yeah. But no, I think they've done a really good job. I think just Mercedes have a much better engine. Like when it comes to the actual car as well, like I think Ferrari have built one of the best chassis on the grid.
The best, I'd say.
Probably the best, yeah. But like when it comes to cornering speeds and how they launch out of corners with the engine and so on, I think they've built a very good car. It's just Mercedes have built a better engine. I think it's a really good starting place for Ferrari. My concern for Ferrari is Ferrari don't tend to go forward, they tend to go back. So
They already have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the general problem with Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So I think it very much could be a season where by rights you would think Ferrari should be the one challenging Mercedes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's McLaren challenging Mercedes more than Ferrari, and very soon. But let's see.
As in, if we have to pick a team that is going to challenge Mercedes for wins, maybe potentially championships in the future, it's going to be McLaren, not Ferrari.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on the basis that Ferrari in the last 100 years or so is the team that goes backwards, not forwards when it comes to new regulations. Like they start things strong and then move forward, or move backwards, not forwards, basically, constantly. So 2022 started great, fell back very quickly. 2017, 2018 started great, started ahead, fell back, not quickly, but like by mid-season we're already falling behind. 2012, I guess you could say. They gave a good fight though, but 2012, I guess they got. Yeah, it was just Alonso that was good, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but generally speaking, that's how they seem to go. So, I'd say McLaren. If I had to bet money on it, I'd bet McLaren more than Ferrari, frankly.
My worry with Ferrari is that the power unit is too slow. Being 25 horsepower down again, they'll get the concessions and everything. But making up that big a deficit is going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And the races, whichever track you're going to go, unless it's Monaco, there are going to be long straights. And on all those straights, Ferrari leaks time like anything.
See, if it's 25 horsepower down horsepower down just on the ice, I actually would have a bit more confidence in Ferrari to make that up with upgrades.
25
if it's on the
horsepower.
battery, if it's on the battery, I think they're fucked because Ferrari and battery power, I think they've a lot to learn compared to Mercedes. On the ice, Ferrari are pretty good at developing an ice, and I wonder how much of that 25 is just down to the how much of that 25 is just at the top end with the smaller turbo? Because then I think
that's the problem. Yeah,
I wouldn't be that worried about it then, because if they can make up for it on deployment, I think, So I think let's see. I guess let's see.
Yeah,
but I think
they're losing half a second on the straights right now, and that gap is not going anywhere unless they put a new power unit in place. But
never underestimate
concern.
Ferrari's ability to cheat. So it'll probably be fine.
I mean, you're expecting Ferrari to be smart and ingenious, right?
No, I said cheat.
Yeah, even to cheat, you have to be smart, right? That's one of the concerns.
Well, I mean, I suppose they did get caught in 2019, didn't they? So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's rush through the midfield. Who stood out? Pierre Gasly, I guess.
Pinto, obviously.
Oh God, no! Yeah, he's. I'm yet to check my post on X where I shared the driver ratings, because I'm pretty sure the post has already reached Argentina by now, and I'm probably getting a few threats and everything.
Yeah. He just didn't have a good weekend. I'm very surprised as well by his performance.
He was too slow.
Far.
In qualifying, he was too slow. In the race,
that's what surprises me. But I genuinely thought he would have been better by now. But yeah, I think if he hasn't got on top of Gasly by mid-season, I think it's going to be very clear that this will be his last season in F1. To be honest,
100%.
It's unfortunate. I genuinely am surprised because I really do think the potential is there, and I'm just not seeing it being extracted for some reason, and I don't know why. So
Flavio would be a reason. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not the best to deal with. Honda. By the way, just touching on the Honda Aston Martin thing. For a change, I'm seeing a bit of a different approach. Things are a bit more cordial, and I think after the shock of early disaster with Honda, I think Aston Martin is now in the phase of acceptance that, okay, this is where we are together and everything.
They're going through the 5 stages of engine development. Yeah.
Of reaching the top of F1. So I think that's where they are right now. It seems that now they are slowly getting more cordial and starting to put things together. I think Alonso was 4 seconds behind.
The thing is as well, we don't know what behind the scenes were. Maybe there was like this is all, we're just seeing the public side of it. Like maybe there's a case of in Honda, they were like, no, there's no problem here. And Nui and Thingy's response was, let's let them have hell in the public until the board of Honda actually says, okay, sorry, we'll fix it. Like, who knows?
Maybe.
But it did seem pretty bad from Aston's side if we just take the public facing side of it. You know?
Yeah. They were fine in Japan. I think they've reached a point where they know that, okay, improvements have to be made and everything. It's going to take time. So let's get to work. Because again,
I wonder how quickly they can fix the vibration issue, because it'll be interesting to see.
Fixed, apparently.
I don't think completely, right? I don't think they can turn the car up fully, though, right? Is the problem still? Basically,
I think they can, but this is the performance of the car and the upgrades. They're not bringing any more upgrades right now. They've stopped bringing upgrades in terms of the chassis just to get the power unit in place.
Because this is the thing. Like, I want to see the car with the engine turned up to full. Because from what I've heard, they still haven't ran it. Like,
they haven't ran the whole. Maybe they ran a more conservative one in Japan so that they could last the entire
race. What I heard
race.
in Suzuka was they were running at roughly 80% of its capability. That's what I heard. That's a big drop off. So my point is, if that's true, and like if they can fix the vibration thing, and once that's fixed, it's a case of just turn it up to 100%. Then you're talking about a good amount of performance just being left on the table. So that's what I want to see, is like, let's see what that car does at like full ability before, you know, because I mean, Honda is good at building engines, like, so who knows, you know?
Let's
what I mean?
see. Let's see what happens. It's so whatever they've shared in the media, both Honda and Aston. So Aston Martin, they're also admitting that again there are some flaws in the chassis as well. I mean, Alonso locks up a lot during his laps, but at the same time, what they are saying is the vibration issue, it is mostly fixed. It should be fixed by Miami. That's what their expectation is. But for them, it is all about, once that is done, you have to have a chat with the FIA that, okay, under ADUO, what all they can do in terms of modifications to the power unit, and then get to that. So they are admitting that the power unit is also slower.
Maybe they need some fixes for the engine, and they just kicked up a fuss to say, look how bad our engine is, and we want all the upgrades.
Yeah, you have too many you're too conspiracy brained right now.
All the conspiracies turned out to be true, Casual. Yeah. I feel it's Marilyn Monroe I feel bad for. Anyway.
Yeah. Who doesn't? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So
killed by the CIA.
Cool.
Ridiculous.
Yep. Cool. Now let's jump to the questions then. Let's go through them.
Okay.
There are quite a few. Okay.
YouTube, right?
Yep.
Red Robin 1122 or 1112 said, just wanted to say mega race from Oscar. Fantastic.
Slowpoke.
Yeah. When do you think we'll actually see car racing again? When Verstappen leaves and stops complaining, everything will be fine.
By the way, you again missed out on the MotoGP race this weekend. Again,
I know.
You're missing on some fun content.
In fairness, I was in the middle of nowhere. It was a surprise I was able to watch the fucking race, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think we, just on a serious side, like, I think the thing is, parts of this are still car racing. It's just more artificial than ever, and I think that can be fixed, and I'm hopeful it'll be fixed for 27 to at the very least get to a point where they're like, these software fixes need to be removed and just need to put the driver back. Because if the driver was in charge of the full deployment, I would say, as much as I don't like it, at least the driver is in charge of this. So at least he's managing it, and it's just like managing your tires. It's just something that they have to do until this regulation ends. But let's see.
My hope is they get to you can say, I mean, as we talked earlier as well, right? First year, have it at 80-20. Second year, have it at 70-30. Third year, and so on. Because that way the technology will also mature and the change would be gradual. That could be a way to go about it. But the problem is right now it's come down to the egos of the stakeholders. Because
there's more overtakes now, though. So that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah. There are so many geniuses that are actually breaking it down into, there are more overtakes. like if you don't know the sports, just don't talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, Central 99-1. Multiple drivers had battery issues cook their race. Yeah. Hadjar was right behind Gasly, then had no battery. Yeah, he had deployment issues, but what were they? We don't really know exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we all know
these
Hadjar is
engines
better
need
than
reform,
Verstappen
is that-
anyway. So
Yeah, that was interesting. Because first I thought that Hadjar waved Max through when Max overtook him. But apparently there was some issues with the deployment and everything. But yeah, he's doing fine. It's just
think-
that
honestly, as well, reliability issues in new engines are just always going to be a problem. Like these are not like your normal road car that they can. There's just bound to be far more problems, So
it's just the first year, right?
yeah.
Within a few years, we
first
might
3
see things.
races as well. Like I mean,
Yeah.
So
Okay, Alexander. Surprised by Antonelli, he really stepped up his game. Is it that because these new regulations provide much better opportunity to hide mediocrity much more effectively? Hamilton case also shows that. Okay.
said in a blatantly biased style.
Yeah. but not really. Okay. He could really step up. Hard to judge, but it was not hard. Hope we all okay. So essentially what he's saying is hopefully we have a title battle at the end of the season.
Yeah.
We have to. Yeah. Ahmed
Yeah.
Fabli. You can go for it.
Oh, I'm at Fably. Yeah. Do you guys think Mercedes should be afraid of McLaren? I guess we've already kind of asked and answered that one. So yes. We only have 3 races and they're already catching up to Ferrari and giving the Mercs a fight. So yeah, 100%. 2, do you think Oscar would win if safety car didn't happen? I guess we've already answered that as well.
Yeah. Nice.
3, I think it's really lucky that Jeddah is cancelled. A crash like Behrman at that track is definitely going to be fatal. Yeah.
Fuck yes.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy.
Shit.
And also, I think Jeddah would have been a shit show for various reasons. Because think about the amount of time they would have been off the gas as well. They would have literally have to show the helicopter like for about 4 hours of the race.
Maybe show the Aramco facility that get bombed by the Houthis.
Yeah, even better. But yeah, and then oh god, I just realized Spa is going to be horrific. Yes, yep.
Oh,
I'm hoping by then they've kind of gotten on top of some stuff. And then 4. So what are you guys going to be doing during this 1 month break? I'll probably write a book.
Pod.
Racing, we miss you. But no, I'm joking. Yeah.
We'll have a pod every week. We'll have a few people on. Let's see.
Yeah, we'll do some fun stuff. I am a noob says, let's all be frank. Okay, hi, I'm Frank. The racing is okay, but what do you suggest they do about qualifying? Maybe put a different engine or something for quali. I think the quali thing is they're basically going to essentially reduce the amount of electric to points, right? So I think it's not like getting rid of the 50-50. It's more, well, it is kind of getting rid of the 50-50, isn't it? But it's more basically like a cap on the amount of charge that you can use throughout a lap, basically. So it will reduce the thing down to
They already reduced it here, by the way.
just
by
it
one
was the
unit.
recharge, right? Like 1 unit megajoules, yeah. But
They'll
I think they're talking
should
about the
have
actual.
Yeah,
They're going to lower the deployment amount over a lap as well, I think.
exactly.
There's a few things they can do. I think, look, I think he's right in that, like, the racing is okay in that, like, we've got some challengers to Mercedes. We've got a little bit of on-track racing, that kind of thing. Like, it could be worse in that, like, if you remember 2014, how dull that was. Like, it could be that bad. You know what I mean? Like, so this is definitely... This is better in some ways and worse in others. 2014, at least, we still had actual cars that could perform on the limit and drivers driving them. So it's better from that. But if anyone was around for 2014, like, the racing was worse. Like, it was just Mercedes off into the distance and nothing really happening. So, I think this is where I kind of disagree with Max in certain things, where I'm like, parts of this, I think you're a bit exaggerative of. But, you know, anyway. Yeah. Who's next? Oh, Waylon Bocephus. I don't know if I'm Bocephus.
I sorted this thing. I mean, you're going up and down. Okay.
Oh, I'm just
Bocephus,
flicking
okay.
through. Yeah. Are we sure someone other than Mercedes can win a race this year? By the way, also the comments are never in the same order. So when you loaded it, Ahmed Fabli was at the bottom for me. That's why I'm kind of jumping around.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
They're just going to be in a weird order. Are someone others in Mercedes going to win a race this year? I think almost definitely. Yeah, I think
Ferrari wins Monaco. I'm pretty sure Ferrari wins Monaco.
100%.
Again, Leclerc's Monaco curse notwithstanding, but
That's
won't be
gone now. He
surprised.
killed it. It's fine.
I think that's one. McLaren is going to slowly start challenging Mercedes. I think they'll catch up to Mercedes. The gap 3 to 4 tenths is not a huge gap.
Plus, these are new engines, and if like McLaren have had reliability issues with the Mercedes, and I think like obviously they'll have them more than Mercedes because Mercedes built the engine and understand it better. But I think it's inevitable that Mercedes will have 1 or 2 reliability issues over the season. So
yeah, 100%.
I would assume,
and there are
22 races.
So for now they are saying 22, but I think we will see both Bahrain and Jeddah at some point this season.
Well, not if the ground invasion goes ahead. We might be down to 21 races with Qatar being so close. So,
God, yeah, Abu Dhabi.
Shit, yeah. If they cancel Abu Dhabi, can the FIA make it up to us by just making Brazil the finale for a change, please? Like, I would actually clear the entire Middle Eastern calendar and just put Brazil as the finale, and I'll be happy. That's it. I'm good. You know.
Okay, Flaky.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird that the broadcast kind of ignores the current world champion and rather shows us Verstappen's struggles? Like, are they so delusional and thought that he would finish higher than 7th? Did they really think he would storm through the field and finish on the podium? Dude couldn't even pass Gasly in Alpine. I guess it sucks not having the fastest car and the whole midfield letting it through without a fight.
I will say, if you're a Verstappen fan, Verstappen couldn't pass Gasly in an Alpine either. So let's...
No, he's talking about that only.
Oh, he's talking... Oh, I thought he was talking about...
He roasted Max.
Oh, Norris
Flaky
did
roasted
finish,
Max
right?
like anything.
You're right, actually. Sorry. I thought this was Verstappen. I was like, Verstappen couldn't pass him either, but Norris was past him. He was in front of him. Yeah, never mind. My bad, Flaky. Sorry about that.
So he's talking about
I just think...
broadcast. I think I'm not entirely sure because I've heard a lot of negative feedback about Apple's broadcast and the Sky Sports broadcast because...
See, I was watching F1 TV, but they all have the same world feed, right? So... I think they're all the same.
No, the feed is the same, but the narrative that they built is different. So that's
sure.
Yeah.
But like the thing I saw was they were showing the Red Bulls a lot in the boxes
PAP.
at the side. Yeah. But honestly, for me, that felt like kind of normal because it was like Lando wasn't really fighting with anyone, whereas the Red Bulls were constantly like fighting with people. Like there was Hadjar and Lindblad, Max and Lindblad, Max trying to get past Gasly, Max was down the field a bit. Lando wasn't really doing anything, so I can kind of see why they wouldn't show him, to be honest. But that's funny.
Because what I've heard is, so again, just like you, I was following F1 TV. I didn't really have that many complaints, but I've heard a lot of complaints about Apple TV. Apparently something's going on with them and the Americans are not happy.
I did like in the F1 TV as well, Jolyon Palmer just called it with when Mercedes came in. He was like, why would you come in there? Like, what are you doing? And then literally a lap later, the safety... So when McLaren pitted and George was only out for 3 more laps and he got called in and he was like, why would you... There's no advantage to this. You're just leaving yourself vulnerable if anything happens without a lap advantage.
No, there was one problem. Charles would have jumped him.
Yeah, that's what they were focusing on. But like your thing was like, why would you not hang out and get a tire advantage later on and so on? And then literally he pitted and a lap later the safety car came out and Jolyon was like, I was saying it. It's like, what are you doing? But
no, true. Because apparently Sky has been criticized for being too whitewashing the new rigs.
Yeah, I did hear though that Crofty apparently... Someone was talking about this in a podcast I was listening to. I can't remember where, but they were saying props to Crofty for trying to explain what's going on with the batteries as opposed to just flat out like bashing them or saying how great they were. He was like talking people through like, this is why this is happening with this and this is the limitation of this and like this is where it's recharging. Like kind of not bashing or praising them, but being like, this is what's happening. Kind of make of it what you will.
Tough task anyways.
Yeah, which I kind of would approve of because, like, I get you're a commentator. You're not supposed like they're just you're going to get.
They are supposed to explain.
Yeah, but my point is, No, but you're not supposed to just like bash the sport because Sky is not going to be happy. I get that, you know, like you're supposed to be selling the sport, but I kind of would prefer the attitude of I'm just going to tell you what's going on, and if you hate that, that's fine. You know, like that to me is like that's the best you can do in that situation. Like you're between
Toto
a
said
rock and a
something
hard
dumb,
place.
right? Toto came up and said that we are looking at a return of pure racing in Formula One. And like,
Oh,
mate,
dear God.
just read
Yeah.
the room before
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
anything.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Vince, 1988. They are hiding speed and battery levels. Overtakes feel fake. Underdrive to go fast. When is all this going to change, or are we stuck with all this for 4 years? Yeah, I mean, look,
No,
this is
it's not like a US president, so we'll have a change earlier.
That's true. Yeah. I think. Look, this is all accurate. It's like, it really annoys me that they're hiding stuff. That annoys me more than anything else. Because, like, frankly, you've built a regulation set. There's limitations in it. And again, like, just going back to what I just said about Crofty, the best thing you can do is show everyone everything. Try and explain why these compromises are here. And like, if fans get annoyed, then make it like, you know, yeah, this is something we need to look at for 27. Like, these are the limitations in these cars. Just like eat your shit and get over it. You know, like hiding it from the screen is going to make people think, you know, to use your Trump analogy there. If you say we've bombed
Trump.
yeah. If you say we've destroyed their ability to make nuclear weapons, you can't then later on say we're going in because they might have nuclear weapons, right? It just, people aren't idiots. Well, a lot of people are idiots, but they're not that stupid. So like hiding them isn't going to fix the problem. It's just going to call more attention to it. Yeah. So you're better off just telling people what's going on.
Don't reach out to content creators and tell them to whitewash the sport. Things get leaked.
I will say, depending on the amount of money you're offering, we will whitewash the sport. But we'll be very upfront about it. It will kick off with, this podcast has been paid a lot of money by Formula One, and if you're here for criticism, please go elsewhere.
There's this thing. When I'll be bought, I won't tell you, but there'll be signs.
Yeah. We'll just show up with like
we're
gold
praising
ornaments and
Lance
stuff.
Stroll and comparing him. Just look at how brilliantly he drove.
You know what will happen? We'll be reporting from a VIP paddock club for every single podcast. It's like, hey guys, we're here at the Monaco Grand Prix drinking champagne. Did you see the race last week? It was brilliant.
Have you seen the action?
I actually really hope at some point that happens, because I think the viewers will. It'll become a running joke if they'll know we hate it, and they'll be like, "Yeah, people have been reporting that this is really terrible." Moving on, did you see what happened?
Yeah. What are the overtakes? Overtakes are overrated. Who wants overtakes? We want drivers to push their car to the limit, just to the point that they cannot overtake.
It'd be like someone asking, what do you think of the software being controlled by this? Did you see the advancements in software they made? Claude has gotten very good. Yeah. Anyway, actually, my bruv, the FIA should be tried by a war crimes court for allowing the predictable and preventable closing speed accident with Behrman. I shouldn't laugh. I should have read the entire thing before laughing. But yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
Anyway, my question is...
He should laugh. He thinks that war crimes court actually are...
His ending to this, though, is... My question is, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Very good. I'd say in Behrman's case, something brown, I would imagine. Because I'm sure he shit himself as that came out. Because Jesus. Honestly,
that was bad.
The one thing we haven't said during this is I was surprised that they are hiding off-board shots because they don't want the sport to look bad. But then they were showing Behrman limping away from an accident. Like, get your fucking priorities straight, or Formula One. Like, seriously. You know what I mean? We better not show that on board. But, he's limping away. That's fine. What are you doing?
This is very common with motorsports as well. Because, again, in F1, there aren't that many violent crashes. In MotoGP, it's a very common thing. So, there was in Barcelona, so the leader, Pecco Bagnaia, he fell from his bike. And his so he's lying on the floor and the bike runs over him. And those fuckers showed that highlight in slow motion thrice. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
In fairness, like normally with F1, like at Silverstone with Joe in 22, was it? When he had that crash.
Oh, yeah.
And he hit the barrier. Yeah. Normally the etiquette is we don't show it until the driver has signaled he's okay. and we know
Yeah.
everything's fine. So I guess you could say like he said he was okay, got out of the car, but I think the moment he's limping, I'm like, yeah, fine, you can show it, but it just seems odd to me that you're willing to show that, but you're jumping away from an offboard because someone's lifting off, and it's just like you're just making yourself look bad here. Like it just looks worse, you know.
Boy.
It reminds me of a Bucky, you know, or no, what's that old thing? It's like he shoots him, and it's like you saw him, he had a gun. It's the old. It was Bill Hicks, I think, the old thing where he's like, it's like the Western where he's like, pick up the gun, and then the guy picks up the gun and he shoots him. He goes, everybody saw him, he had a gun.
Yeah.
It's like that's what it reminds me of for some reason. It's just
Anyways.
Anyway,
I guess questions are done, right?
yeah.
We've been through all of them.
Predictions
That
for
was
Saudi
good, man.
Arabia or for Bahrain?
Yeah.
No.
Any plans? No, none. Bahrain still hurts. I probably would have ended up there, but yeah. Anyways. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. We'll probably have someone on if they don't cancel in the last minute.
We'll see.
Take care.
We
Bye-bye.
do weird times of recording. Bye, everybody.
Yep.